It was a very, very long journey. We learned a lot. We became pilots, light aircraft pilots. We did isolation trainings. We did survival trainings with the Army here, both on water and land as well. We did centrifuge training. We did aerobatic plane trainings as well. So many, many things. We also learned a lot. We did a lot of exercise, which I guess we will talk a little bit more about in this discussion. And then basically end of May 2024, I was the lucky one who was selected as an astronaut. After that end of the training, we did our mission, which was a 20 days long mission in space. Out of the 20 days, we spent 18 in the International Space Station, where my role was to conduct Hungarian experiments. We collected and we prepared and planned 25 experiments from the country. Basically, all the scientific universities was participating in this program. They had very good ideas, and fortunately, in the past couple of years, we could gain that competence within the program, but also with our researchers, so we can prepare these kind of experiments so they can go to space and they can be conducted there.
Let's circle back a little bit about your physical preparation. Could you please tell us a bit more about the structure of your preparation and what kind of trainings did it include?
Mainly our physical preparation was structured from different parts of trainings. Our main fitness was developed by physical strength training. We had cardio training and we had swimming trainings. Every single day in the week we had some kind of training exercise, and altogether it was, I think, around 11 hours a week of physical trainings. And additionally to this, we used the EMSCULPT NEO device to supplement the muscle growth and enhance the regeneration.
When astronauts do long duration missions like 6 months or 8 months or even more, they have to train, or they have to do exercises every day, and they have to do at least 2 hours, 1 hour cardio and 1 hour strength training. In our short duration mission, we did not have time for that. We went to the station to conduct experiments, and therefore we worked long hours, and unfortunately exercise is not a priority really. So what you have to do in this case is that you actually train a lot beforehand, and then you accept that basically you will probably lose some muscle in the process, because space is extremely harmful for the human body. Space does not want you to be there at all. It's harmful for the muscles, it's harmful for the bones, and so many other things. So that's the reason we actually train a lot before the mission. And then of course the recovery part is also quite important.
Of course. So part of your preparation, as we said, included EMSCULPT NEO. I want to talk a little bit about this. How did EMSCULPT NEO complemented your traditional astronaut training, and which muscle groups did you treat with it, and why?
I think the most important muscle group that was trained with NEO as well, EMSCULPT NEO, or I would say complemented, is definitely the core muscles. Part of the reason is that those are the muscles that you use basically for everything, almost. And that's why I actually, like myself, I also found it super important in this process. And also those are the muscles that will also help you in a much faster recovery after a space flight. So despite of us having a full body treatment plan, we were doing biceps, we were doing triceps, legs as well. For me, it was the core muscles that were a little bit more important.
So if you compare EMSCULPT NEO to other treatments, what stand out the most for you? Like if you had to point out a difference, what that would be?
In my opinion, the stimulation that we get from the EMSCULPT NEO is far greater than what we traditionally can experience during training, and this deep contraction helps, I think, with the muscle growth, and this provides a lot more muscle growth.
So I think I'm definitely not the most experienced in other methods for sure, but I wouldn't find any other things with this many contractions and that kind of deep contractions. So what I found really nice about NEO is that it complements the traditional training very, very well. it really creates those deep muscle contractions, and so many of those. So you really feel, that you are evolving, that you're developing after one session or maybe 2 sessions already.
So that would be my next question. Like, and in the duration of 6 months, what was both of your experience with NEO treatments? Because you went through such difficult, I would say, training schedule, both of you. So how did you see the difference with EMSCULPT NEO regular training routines? Did you notice that maybe your stability, your endurance was better with EMSCULPT NEO?
So when we did the NEO back in the day, we had a very, very rough agenda, like based on the whole space program schedule, I would say. One of the nicest things that stood out for me is that we could always be a little bit flexible with NEO. We could always select which are the muscle groups that we are focusing on in that kind of weeks, and that could, complement our regular training very well. So I definitely saw some results for sure, especially in my arms, and also for basically we always had some kind of core, maybe on the sides, maybe on the front. So that was always part of the routine, and naturally I also saw some results there, and actually I felt results too. So it was very nice.
And which one, if we had to talk about areas, what was your favorite area that you had to pick?
So many. I think triceps is very nice. Core for sure. If I had to pick, I would definitely select abs for the next treatment, and that's because I also have to have a lot to work on that field. So yeah, I would pick these.
Yeah, I would go for the abs as well.
Abs?
Abs yeah. I think that's also a little challenging for me, but also I think that it had great results at that.
Mm-hmm.
But it also makes you very proud, right?
I mean,
afterwards, you're proud of yourself.
Yes, exactly.
You survived one more day.
Yes.
Yes. Over the 6 months of weekly NEO treatment, what was the most significant improvement you noticed? How did NEO help to improve the muscle endurance before you had the training in the US? Both of you.
I would say that it is really hard to separate the results of the training. In the meantime, we were training really hard, the astronaut basic trainings. But I think strength-wise, we really saw a peak at that. And it was, I think it was possible because of the high contractions and the contractions we had from the NEO.
Yeah.
I could really see that my performance is getting better and better, especially deadlifts. For some reason, I'm pretty sure I'm not doing deadlifts right, but I'm using a lot of core, which I might, should not do. I don't know. But my performance is getting better and better, especially in those exercises when I'm actually using my core muscles. So and that was really nice to experience and to see.
So let's go a little bit about the time when you were in space. So usually when someone is in space, how does the absence of gravity affects human body? I'm thinking more about bones and muscles.
Yeah. So basically, from the moment that you are in space, your body starts to adapt. I have an engineering background. Maybe that's the reason, or that's one of the reasons why it was so fascinating for me, how the body adapts going to space and then actually coming back. We spent 20 days in space. Adaptation, what I was feeling, it took like 1 or 2 days. Head pain went away, I think on the second day already, or headaches. Your bones and muscles start to react basically almost instantly, for the sole reason that you are not really using them as much as in gravitational environment like Earth. Bone is always stronger where the muscle is stronger, and since you're not really using your muscles, or not that much, your bone density will also become less and less. You're basically losing almost an equivalent of 1 teeth or 1 tooth per month in space when it comes to bone density. Your heart volume also gets a little bit smaller. Your blood pressure is also lower generally. Your muscles, as I mentioned, you will definitely lose your tones. Unfortunately, I could see that already after like a week, because really we don't really have that much time in a short duration mission.
If you had any type of training in space and in a short-term
Yeah.
mission, what type of trainings, if you did any?
Okay, so short duration missions have a lot of specifics compared to long ones. Rubber bands is definitely one of the key exercise equipments that we can use because it's just so simple and also very lightweight. So it's really easy to bring up to station, do some exercises, and for that amount of time, I think it will preserve if you do it quite regularly. We did not did that all the time, but it's extremely nice, and I would definitely suggest it. I was actually surprised how effective it is. We also did some cardio on like sort of like a bike, but that was also on a really low wattage. What I would say definitely is that if we would have some sort of thing like a NEO in space, that would be actually really beneficial, because you can just do a half an hour session or 1 hour session while you are actually doing something else. Maybe you're reading or something like this. In space, every minute that you spend with something, it's actually very costly. You really have to be very careful of what you are spending your time on. When we plan our experiments, we plan really basically every 5 minutes of experiments, so we can see how much effort did it take for us to do those experiments, because we want to maximize our output, right? We want to be as effective as we can be. So if you can do parallel tasks, like do something with NEO on yourself, or just basically rest and use the NEO, that could be extremely beneficial, especially for short duration missions.
So from your perspective, having strong muscles besides in the space, why is it important for like regular people on Earth?
Oh, for a lot of reasons. It creates a lot of confidence. I think that's one of the most important. It's not necessarily how you look in the mirror, but how you feel. How you feel yourself in your body. Like how do you feel good, or do you feel less good or bad? I think that's one of the most important stuff. Apart from that, it makes you capable. It makes you, capable of handling maybe a little bit more than regular or everyday tasks. It will make you proud. You will come handy to other people. You will be a great help to other people, great support.
You are describing my life.
Right, I know. So it's just, it's the way of living healthy, and I'm 100% sure that everyone who is able to should strive for that.
Please tell me a little bit about your journey back from space, because you mentioned that it was a little bit difficult with muscle recovery, and it actually affects the muscle much more coming back than being in space.
Right. I think it's super interesting. I am 33 years old. In my 33 years of life, I have always lived in Earth, right? Always lived in 1G. And then I go out to space, my body suddenly meets 0G for the first time and it starts to adapt. And then I come back to 1G again, where I have always lived. And even though I was always living in this environment, it's a little bit more hard. Not only me, but in the history of billions and billions of people, there were only basically less than 1,000 who experienced micro-G or 0G, meaning that we're not really built for this from the evolutionary point of view. So for me, it was extremely interesting and also exciting that even though we come home is a little bit harder to adapt to or adapt back to than in space, because we spent 20 days in space and we became weak. That's the easy answer for that. So now you have to regain that muscle. I will never forget the minutes or the moments when we, at the altitude of 95 kilometers, we start to re-enter Earth atmosphere, or the thicker part of the atmosphere. So the plasma around our capsule starts to build up. Basically, in a few seconds, we became a huge fireball with more than 6,000 degrees of Celsius of plasma next to the capsule. That's exactly the heat load that the heat shield have to withstand. But of course, it's extremely beautiful. It's pink and it's orange and it sparks and everything. So naturally, you want to see that. In the capsule, when you're coming back, you are basically laying, and the window was right that way. So I had to look in the direction of my feet. So I have to do this with my neck. In the meantime, I also see the screen in front of Shooks, and the screen tells us how much G's do we experience at that time. Fortunately, we could already see some colors like orange and pink at 0 G, but then it starts to build up. And I will never forget that at the point of 1 G, which is exactly the one that we feel here right now, it was already extremely hard to hold my neck, extremely hard, even though that is exactly the amount of G-force that we feel on Earth every single day. We could only hold, both Shooks and me, because we were both curious, until basically 1.8 Gs, which is not that lot, not that much, but it was already extremely painful. And then we went until 4.5. So
wow.
with
how did that feel?
Oh, it's super fun. It's it's extremely fun. I could do it any day. It's really fun. It's vibrating and it's loud and it's it's a lot of feelings, a lot of G's on your chest. So it's really good. But then you come back. You are basically rocking on the water next to San Diego, shores of San Diego. And it takes like 40 or 50 minutes for the SpaceX people to put your capsule on a boat, on a ship, on a barge. So in that 40 minutes, you just try to. I'm not saying survive, not try to survive, but you start to re-experience how Earth feels like. So you lift your head and it just falls back because you're that weak. You start to lift some stuff like the stylus of your tablet, and it's also much heavier than used to be. And then they put you on a barge, they make you stand up, your knees feel extremely weak. Basically, it's not that you're tired, there's no strength at all. So you start to collapse almost. It is very funny, but also it's very interesting experience. And then you start to regain that tone on your muscles and the muscle strength only by just laying in a bed. In a matter of hours, I remember it was maybe 10 or 12 hours, I was laying in a bed and that's it. And I could lift my hand and it was just staying there. It's fascinating how the body can adapt to 1 G even by just laying on a bed.
How do you see technologies like EMSCULPT NEO helping astronauts' lives in long-term mission, let's say, in space? Like, do you see maybe in the future to having such technologies incorporated in future astronauts' lives?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's it's a huge deal. Every grams or every kilograms that you're launching to space is extremely costly. You really have to be very effective of the payloads that you're launching to space. If you have any chance to do something on a much lighter way than you used to, or a much more effective way, then you basically have to. Then you have to go for it. And especially when we are turning our heads towards Moon and Mars, which will take, when we talk about Mars, it will take roughly 2 years of missions. Then it becomes even more important to use such technologies like the NEO. There are a lot of challenges that we have to solve with all the ultrasound and radio waves and RF and everything. But if you have any chance to to maintain at least the muscle strength of astronauts in a very effective way, then you basically have to use it.
If you had to say, I don't know, one word about NEO and your experience and the value of NEO, like what would you say?
I would say intensity. It gives really large intensity in a really short time.
Yes, absolutely.
So therefore, I would say effective.
Well, both of the names go with NEO for sure, backed up with studies. So we are really happy and very honored that we could be a part of your journey with EMSCULPT NEO. And we really hope our journey is still going with the rehabilitation of your program and with the recovery of your muscles. So we really hope that we can be a part of your journey, both of your journey in the future. And very proud. Thank you so much for being here with us today with BTL, and looking forward to seeing you soon.
Awesome. Thank you for
Great.
having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.